Meghan Markle is not known for her warmth, right? I mean, I think we've seen that. Oh, yes, you can see it on camera. You can see it when she turns up at some fatality or somewhere. And, there she is with the camera, making sure that she's got the full hug. But absolutely, in sort of family endeavours, not necessarily known for her warmth. And you might say, that's a little unkind, Neil. Well, look at the way that she's treated her family. And we're not just talking about Thomas and, of course, her half-sister. I'm talking about the wider members of the family. That really, when you think about it, there must be a bigger issue out there, because why are all of the family ostracised? But the one thing Meghan is good at is controlling the narrative up until this point. Eventually, everybody gets caught out. But what's interesting is the way that she does it literally on the public stage. And it's no sort of shock to me as to why she was desperate to get back into the world of social media. You see, in the world of social media, particularly those things, where you post stuff up like Pinterest and, Instagram and stuff, you give a snapshot of the life that you want to perpetuate to others. We've all seen it, right, chums? The sort of people on holiday that you think, right, I'm slaving away here and you're on holiday and you think that looks nice. And of course, when you do your own picture, you do exactly the same because you want people to look at the bigger image. This particular image was fascinating because it said a lot about Meghan Markle and literally how she's operating on a land now that is very slippery and also very, very sort of quicksandy, because things are a-changing in the land of Montecito. You see, what you have to remember is when Meghan first hooked up with Prince Harry, he was beguiled by this very thriving middle-aged beauty, but nonetheless somebody who had a bit of sass, lived a bit of a life according to him, because she'd been to Argentina, suddenly now lived in Spain, was half Maltese, and miraculously now is also 43% Nigerian. There isn't a slice of the European or indeed world cake that Meghan can't slice herself into. You get the picture. But Harry's believed it. Cocooned into a world of where he lives, everything done for him, no problems with money, never had a mortgage, never had a bank account, overdraft, anything. Suddenly the woman who looks like she knows what she's doing in life says, I'll be your mummy and I'll take care of you. And it worked for a while, but now it's slightly slipping away. As ever, let me explain. Hi, welcome back to a brand new episode of By Royal Appointment. Oh yes, it's the appointment that we all like to keep. It's not like the doctors, is it? You know what I mean? The sort of thing. I'm just digress here, but when you go to the doctor, do you still get all those texts reminding you that you are turning up in 14 days' time? Reminding you in 5 hours, you think, I know, I'm not senile, You know what I mean? But it's the endless text. When you get there, you ask a question relating to anything that's worrying you. No, we can't help you with that. No. Too busy in the background texting, sending you a message to make sure you turn up. You see what I mean? It's a bit like this particular story. When you look at this picture, right? Here's Prince Harry play acting, basically. But as I've said to you before, I admire this picture for two simple reasons. I can't swim, bit nervous of water, and anybody with that big sort of curvature of water think, oh, no, fake or not, But I've seen younger kids doing this on those sort of water parks, so it's impressive, but it's not impressive, you get what I mean? But of course, Meghan decided when things were getting a little bit rocky recently, of course, to post up this just ahead of the fact that a new series of the fake cooking show With Love Meghan was coming out, and reminding everybody that she pointed out to Jamie Kern-Lima, the woman, of course, with her own built-in helium box, that, he's a fox, he's a handsome fox. I've got to be honest with you, I can't get that phrase out of my mind with Jamie, when she says, I'm having full body chills. Right. It's quite funny to say that to somebody that you're interviewing, isn't it? I would never have said that to somebody and thought, this is, but, apparently they're friends. But you see, Meghan decided to put this picture up, right? And the idea was that to tell the world that, she's married to the best looking, gorgeous prince. And, he's a handsome fox, he's a dragon slayer, he can do everything. And the timing of this is really, really interesting, because what you have to remember, if you're a Meghan Stiletto Heels designer, of course, is the fact that, things are not going too swimmingly. You see, the problem is there's a widening gulf now between Meghan and Harry. And the problem that you've got, and she's recognising this in her malignant sort of narcissist state that she lives in, is the fact that the control is going. Now, the control was fine, right, when he would do what she wanted. And right at the beginning, tapping him on the back, rubbing him, grabbing his hand, you've talked too much, time for me, let's get back to me. She has had everything. And literally, whether Harry's woken up to some of the ideas that she said that are outright lies about his family and her family or whatever, you know, he does want some independence. That's the reason why he zipped off to Africa. He needed a break. He was at breaking point. The story goes that the idea really was that after the Sentebale disaster, he wanted to reconnect and all that sort of stuff. Interesting, as I told you, the idea that Harry was going to set up his own charity has sort of stumbled a block right now because not many people fancy investing into that until it's really very clear what went wrong at Sentebale, and that's going to take some time. But of course, like Harry, when he threatens people with we did ask the Queen to name our child Lilibet, and then the BBC said, well, we'll push back. That just disappeared. Remember, Harry also threatened the author about the fight, and that just disappeared, even though the author had to fully retract a statement about Melania Trump. So you understand how that works. But Meghan, technically, is losing the fight, and she's losing the fight through her own stupidity, really, because Harry basically would have been very easy to manipulate, but Meghan is in a world of her own, and she likes being photographed by, you know, her good friend and the arty black and white pictures. It's a world that she wants to live in, and it's a world that Harry wants to remove himself from. He likes the limelight. He's still a narcissist in that sense. Loves being pictured, loves being feted, loves having the applause, like popping up at the Well Child Awards and stuff like that. Popping up to do his speeches with the lengthy auto cue that you don't see through the glass plastic perspex screen, right? So it's all that. But as two individuals, they're going their separate ways. And on today's show, I just wanted to highlight where you can see exactly how, well, the Sussexes are slipping apart. It happens in all relationships, you see. This is the bigger problem. And really, when you look at the dynamic, it's very obvious exactly what's happening in the relationship now between Meghan and Harry. That's because when he first came onto the scene, in Meghan's eyes, you know, for a short period at least, he was the dragon slayer, the handsome fox, the fox. On a serious note, he was going to do everything that she dreamed upon, make her an international star. Well, I would say that's a tick, right? Make her well known, well, that's a tick. Making her well liked, that's proved more problematic. And the problem now moving forward as the relationship develops is the fact that, well, she's sort of plateaued, if you like, and people are indifferent to her talents, and I'm using that term loosely. Harry's popularity has plummeted because each and every time he's had to throw himself on the line. He's the one that has to go out there and defend her. She very, very rarely says anything in his favour. You know, everything's used for a tactical purpose. Even the recent picture of him surfing in the fake thing. You know, that was all just ahead, of course, of her launch of her second series of the TV show. Again, strange when you think about it, why she wouldn't gush about him, other than the fact that, that's why I married him, you see. He's so smart. Another sort of like backhanded compliment. Staff tell me that working for Meghan, it's full of that sort of stuff. You feel you've done well, almost a bit like a spotted dog. You get a pat on the head, and then you're 4 steps back because, well, you receive an email, allegedly, saying you didn't do this, you didn't do this. So everything you thought you got right, you've now suddenly got wrong. You get the picture. And the difficulty now that Harry's got is he's thrown everything on the line for the woman that he loves. And this has been into detail on many different occasions. But you see, Meghan's now becoming itchy and itchy feet, simply because he's not delivered. You know, it was a thing that happened to Trevor. Trevor didn't deliver. Nice guy, handsome guy, very sweet apparently, doted on Meghan, couldn't do enough for her, believed in her as a person, but the magic didn't happen. You see it a lot in celebrity relationships and marriages. As one star rises and the other one declines, they can't bear it. And this is exactly where Meghan and Harry are, whether they want to admit it or not. You see, Harry's not bothered about the international fame as such, but he has now got more used to the fact that he likes the attention. Hence the reason we've been told well in advance that he's coming back over for the Well Child Awards. As I said previously, to me, so what? You know, you're just a non-working royal coming to head a charity. You're not welcome here simply because we're not keen on you anymore, and you're not keen on us. You don't want to invite the British media in, you don't want to do any interviews, so why should we be excited? You see how this works. Now, the problem that Meghan has is this, that Netflix have lost complete interest in her as well. So while her husband can't drag up enough attention, neither can Netflix. You see, the launch of her fake second series has been an unmitigated disaster. Netflix apparently didn't have the budget to push this new series. This didn't go down well, as you can imagine, with Markle, right? Simply because, she was looking a bit like, if you think about it, with the archetype stuff with Spotify and the Lemonada, big advertising campaigns. You see, in Meghan's mind, just the mere picture of her advertising her product should be enough. She's been left baffled by the lack of sales of, say, the jam and the wine, and apparently the muted response is something along the lines of like, we might have a problem with the supply chain. There's no problem, people simply don't want it. But in Meghan's eyes, it's never her fault, right? And the other bigger issue is truly this. You see, as her fault becomes her fault, she doesn't want to know. Now, here's where this gets interesting, because you see the people at Netflix who made the fake second series, hope you're keeping up, chums, well, the thing is, they had no idea that this was going to be split into a series. They thought that this was the first one. So consequently, while she gave them a wooden spoon, again, allegedly, not everybody is happy because they thought they were coming back for a second series. Nobody had ever discussed the fact that this was going to be chopped at that particular point. And this has proven to be a disaster, simply because, when you can see it, everything you loathed about the first series is now back in spades for the second series. Of course, that could have been changed by reviewing what went wrong, what people liked, maybe the guests, all of that sort of stuff. I mean, Chrissy Teigen, hardly an A-list guest, but they pushed ahead with it, even though there was a lot of negativity, because Meghan likes her and she's a friend. Tan France, nice enough guy, but not exactly a busting name. Now again, where this gets really interesting is Netflix are still, and this is the early stage stuff, we're now coming into September. Well, they've boasted about this particular Christmas special, and the content creative director has said it's happening. The wheels in motion are still very much in the, they're not quite sure, because obviously now what they've got to do is look at exactly how much money With Love Meghan has made so far. And by that, then they look at how much money they're willing to spend on this Christmas special. And, there won't be this fake 80-man crew that Meghan spoke about. They will have to look at cutting costs, and cutting costs on a more dramatic level, whether Meghan wants to admit that or not. Again, where this gets more convoluted is, in Meghan's eyes, and in Meghan's case, can I point out, where does she go from here? You see, the problem that you've got, once you've done that particular thing and you've push this particular avenue out. She's talking about things like doing a talk show. Well, she did that with podcasting. That's clearly not worked. Netflix really are just riding the game out. If they have some sort of gap in the schedule and they can do it cheap enough, then Christmas might just come around for Meghan one more time on Netflix. But the bigger issue behind the scenes is exactly now, where do Meghan and Harry go together? Some suggest that she sees him as a bit of an albatross on a professional level. And the other side of it is that Harry wants to step right back from the world of show business. But without Harry at her side, show business is certainly not interested in Meghan Markle. Hollywood, in fact, you might say, and I use that term loosely, have finally turned their back on the one-time budding princess, as she liked to call herself. And the bigger issue now is that as Catherine and William are now back in the lane, as it were, and their popularity is rising more than ever and proving to be more popular stateside, this is going to be another thorn in the side for Markle. She can't compete with a real-life prince and princess. People, of course, that are doing genuinely good work, not trying to sort of shill a living by pretending to be interested in fake cooking, chopping up bread, or indeed whirling around with a wine bottle. It doesn't necessarily sell into the public. Meghan is at a crossroads, but apparently she believes a meeting with the management team and her ideas can put her back on track. She's ever hopeful, right? One of the things that people notice about Meghan Markle in particular is she's always keen to point out in any interview, in any podcast, or any sit down with anybody, well, she doesn't read it. It's just all white noise. She's not interested. Yet she knows a lot that goes on this channel, let me tell you, 100%, without a doubt, right, Meghan? Of course this woman is watching and reading, or her team are doing exactly the thing. This is because Meghan uses every single opportunity to, as the kids say, clap back, If she doesn't like something, she'll sort of point out that, oh, if somebody told me this, or if I said that, or my twerking video, she brings it back round to the negative criticism. Now, if you're in the public eye, you just really have to accept the fact that you are going to get criticism. Believe it or not, chums, I get quite a bit on here. But you know, the bottom line is it's a free speech, it's free for all. You can't please everybody. A lot of people don't like the topics, as I've said this to you before. Many people say, is this the only thing you do? And yet there are various other topics. It's the ones that they decide to click on and choose. That's their problem. But of course, it's suddenly my problem because I've got it wrong. The problem is that Meghan can't control that. She doesn't like that. Hence the reason she doesn't have comments turned on her Instagram page. She doesn't want to read anything negative. The problem is, of course, when it comes out of your hands. And in particular, like a YouTube promo for Netflix, you can honestly see that people are, you know, at best unkind. And what I'm saying about that is, as I said before, the problem that you had is that really the program is a dud. It should have been polished and put back together for a second series, but clearly Netflix did not want to spend more money. One thing that brought a bit of a smile though inside Netflix earlier this week was none other than this, and this was by no mistake. I mean, 100%, this wasn't just a sort of like, oh right, this happened. This is of course the engagement of the pop superstar Taylor Swift to Travis Kelce. And where this gets interesting is, you see, I mean, picture this. Meghan has tried her very best to get Taylor Swift in some shape or form back on her show. She wanted it for the podcast. She thought it would actually be an absolute easy reach. I don't know if Mariah knows this, but she was second choice, right? Again, allegedly. And I'm a big fan of both. But the thing is, you know, according to, well, if you look at the demographics, Taylor Swift can pull in a very big audience, and more so, particularly as a sort of business entrepreneur. She's done everything herself. Very talented girl, knew exactly how to take back control of her masters by re-recording her own albums. These are things that, you know, for somebody of her age, and I don't mean that in a rude way, but it's just very clever. I think that's the generation thing, isn't it, you know? Ask other people, the only person from the 60s that controls their own masters is the 60s singer Sandy Shaw. All the rest of the girls, Dusty, Scylla, Petula, no, they don't own them. You see what I mean? Comes once in a lifetime. Meghan wanted a slice of it, couldn't get it. Prince Harry was then ensued to, well, screw up Meghan's calligraphy and then start writing letters and try and contact Taylor herself. The final nail in the coffin, really, was when, of course, Taylor Swift was pictured with Princess Charlotte and Prince George. Two beaming teenage fans that you couldn't think, wow. You could just see that Princess Charlotte loved Taylor Swift. And this was really reciprocated simply because, of course, you know, it does a lot of good for her career. But their friendship goes back a long way, you know. They started out working with each other, Prince William and Taylor Swift, a long time back. According to a very well-placed source who works alongside Taylor, who I know very well, in the sound department, well, the thing is, it's interesting because she has literally no time at all for Meghan Markle. She had a little bit of time for Prince Harry. She thought he was quite fun and jokey and, you know, the sort of upbeat brother that, you know, really she could have possibly got on with. But she didn't like the change of direction, the narrative. So, well, people might say, well, why did she decide on that particular point, on that particular moment, to literally come up and decide, well, now is a good time to announce my engagement? Well, as I said, this did not go, well, as you can imagine, down well in Montecito. But over in Netflix, a lot of raised eyebrows and a lot of smirking, simply because they knew at that point that whatever they thought they may have got in terms of front pages and that sort of stuff was now well and truly lost. Now, Meghan knows that you can't beat that. She's not that stupid. She kind of knows. Now, the one thing that she could have done, which her team wanted her to do, was to put out a congratulations message via her social media. She couldn't bring herself to do it. And you see, that would have brought it right back round to her. It's the oldest PR trick in the book. Thank the person that's absolutely spurned you, and then, of course, if they don't respond, it works bad. You see, but Meghan doesn't understand business, hence the reason she was never able to find a CEO for American Riviera or indeed her latest endeavour. Now, Prince Harry, as you can see, very spectacularly kept out of the way. But behind the scenes, there was another plan in order to try and make this show work. But again, Meghan, well, and the cost more prohibitively, weren't really willing to make it work. Let me explain. Part of the problem with the ever sort of fakery that Meghan Markle has is that not many people really now want to be part of it. You see, when they first went over to California or the United States, wherever they decided, Canada, people were really excited because, you know, they liked Harry Absolutely. They were still very, very unsure, of course, about Meghan Markle, but maybe she could have been telling the truth. Maybe she did want a life of privacy or privacy, depending on where you come from. And then, of course, you look around and you think, no, that was a complete tissue of lies. And the problem that's making Meghan very hard to buy into on this particular new series is the fact that you'll have noticed this, right, chums? Whenever anybody turns up, right, it's always great to see you, but they don't seem to know anything about her. For instance, Chrissy Teigen, is this your dog? Is she a friend? I mean, don't you know that you've got a dog? It's just very, very strange, don't you think? And that's part of your problem. The other thing is, we know it's in a fake kitchen, so it's not Meghan's house. And the other point on top of all of that is that Meghan never seems to be making anything. She starts something off, but a little bit like a children's TV programme over here in the United Kingdom, Blue Peter, well, very quickly the end result's produced, you know, like the sourdough bread. Perfect. As everything Meghan does, you know, but you don't actually see it rising, do you, in the oven? You don't see her put it in the oven. It's suddenly just there, like that spread where the chef comes out and starts to say, drink this. Everything is sort of like perfection. And you think, do you never get anything wrong? Well, apparently she does, you see, because what was interesting was, behind the scenes, we saw Chrissy Teigen turn up, and then, you know, the person behind her was none other than John Legend, her husband. Interviewed John on a number of occasions, nice chap, absolutely very talented. Interesting though, because the producers had an idea about having some sort of, you know, man space where the two guys, Harry and John, might have a bit of a conversation about what they're going to eat or what will the ladies be cooking them, you know, that type of thing. Problem, you see, there's another fee. Right, yeah, you see what I'm saying? Again, allegedly. So that's the reason why you only saw John fleetingly, you know, hi, you know, an appearance, stand back. And one might suggest, of course, that with his credibility as a musician, one might also may think that he doesn't necessarily want to be tied into this. I mean, clearly what was fascinating was the whole sort of, well, how can you put it, the fake friendship between Chrissy and Meghan, both ex-briefcase girls from Deal or No Deal. You would have thought they maybe even brought that up. Bit of sort of fun, a bit of lightheartedness. Absolutely not. You see, throughout this brand new fake second series, Meghan was hoping to sort of hark back to something where she got a lot of problems, a lot of flack for. Remember earlier this year when she suddenly decided, on her own, of course, Instagram posting, to unveil the fact that she decided to get all of this merchandise from the pop star Billie Eilish. Remember that? And it was strange, wasn't it? The whole thing was just odd because apparently he'd just arrived, but somebody neatly all put it out. And then, of course, contradictory, a lunchbox is still a thing. This person has given you all this merchandise, but now, are these still a thing? You know, never ever totally grateful. You would have said, what a delightful, you know, absolutely. But she decided, as we all know, to share this with the world before contacting the child's mother. Again, very strange story. Never really got to the bottom of that. Has anybody ever seen this particular couple? Seems a bit odd, you know what I'm saying? Now here again is where I think there's a bit of a mystery, because you see, if they'd have donated all of that sort of stuff, and you know, you thought, well, you've been kind enough, as of course was Adam Levine, who also did that, well, you would have thought, well, yeah, maybe they may pop up on this show. No. According to a very well-placed source who worked on this show, there were desperate calls throughout to try and get Billie even to just do a message to up the ante, you know, somebody that's relevant to the Gen Z group or all that sort of stuff. But apparently she was too busy. Now, don't you find that odd, right? It's odd, isn't it? You're willing to donate all this merchandise, but a chance to appear on a show that, let's be honest, clip-wise, is going to get seen around the world because you would be talked about. Well, apparently you're too busy. Well, we know a lot of people were too busy to appear on Meghan Markle's show, including the Kardashians, her own mother to a point, and of course Beyonce. All of these A-lister names that were muted around at the very first meeting. And Meghan, you see, again, very clever, let me tell you ladies, because you see, she threw it back to the fact that it actually wasn't her idea for the show. Never her fault, you see, if it's a flop. No, this was down to the content creator, the executive of the streaming company Netflix. It was her, after just sending some, you know, jam unannounced, that said, this could be the thing for you. So you see, shifting the goalpost again. If it goes wrong, well, it's not their fault, is it? And when you think about it also, and as I've mentioned this before, you look at it and you think, well, there was no real sort of bonding friendships there, were there not? Tan Fran, suddenly he got this box for his spices that apparently Meghan had knocking around for a long, long time, and suddenly she'd found the perfect gift for her guest. He, of course, quite a good actor, pretended to be emotional, something he'd always wanted. His smile said it, his eyes didn't. But what was interesting was, of course, he knew that this was going to get him talked about, and the longer he cried, gushed and moved around, the longer the camera stayed with him. So where are we right at now with this? Well, as I said at the start of the video, you see, Harry is very keen to just become an indifference, as it were. He doesn't want part of the showbiz sort of sect anymore. But Meghan and Netflix know that without him, there's no real interest factor. Nobody gave a stuff. You can see that with the ratings. Did make the top 10, got talked about, but for all the wrong reasons. This is not going to make any money. And as I conclude on this particular episode of By Royal Appointment, as I said, the next big thing, which is the Christmas special, has yet to have its first production, real serious meeting. In the next few days, they're going to decide what direction they want to go, if any. They put the statement out saying they can't wait to work with her, but the figures and the results and the sales and the marmalade and the wine, well, it simply doesn't stack up. For Meghan, once again, she could be uncorking yet another reinvention. But will this one work? As ever, it's a developing story. As ever, chums, thank you for joining me on By Royal Appointment. And if you can, please like, share and comment respectfully. And as ever, do take care of yourselves out there. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.